The Madman! Welcome to Trump's Scholomance Academy Star Ratings Review, Neutral Edition. Desk Imp, potentially a high roll with Philosophy turn 1, but way too inconsistent, 1 star. Animated Broomstick, got some exciting reviews early, but 1 star. 1 mana, 1/1 rush just isn't that good. The bonus effect of giving your other guys rush, whatever. Intrepid Initiate, 3 stars. This is actually going to be a contentious one. It's a 1-drop potential 3/2. It could slot into quite a number of aggressive decks, but ultimately my belief is that the 1/2 stat line is too weak. It requires a spell with it to be good, and it seems like most decks are not running both small minions as well as small spells. Flinger, 1 star. This is a very sad 1 star because I wanted it to be good. The way I see it is Flinger could be potentially good in a deck with a lot of spells, and then you just toss it in every once in a while for 1 damage. I just don't see any deck like that being good enough. And I don't want to break my Libram Paladin up from Pure Paladin just to put a Flinger in. Sphere of Sapience, 3 stars. I think ultimately does not make the cut in Highlander decks. It certainly does not make the cut in any deck that isn't combo, in my opinion. The cost of 1 card to set up better cards is heavy. Don't ever forget that. Tour Guide, 3 stars. Tour Guide has been stated to be extremely good in a number of decks, but I looked at every single one of those decks. Believe me, I did my due diligence on Tour Guide. You could play it in Face Hunter in order to, on turn 2, play your Face Stalker and Hero Power and immediately get a secret. That is pretty sweet, but it does require you to draw the Tour Guide and the Face Stalker. I don't believe Tour Guide is good in Face Hunter because it is not 1 mana 1/1 deal 2 damage to face. It is a 1 mana 1/1 that sets your Hero Power to 0. So late in the game when you're top decking, the Tour Guide is literally a 1 mana 1/1 since you're pressing the Hero Power button anyways each time with your excess mana. Tour Guide in Warlock, because Kobold Librarian is insane, right? But Kobold Librarian is a 2/1. And this is a 1/1. Furthermore, let me remind you that Tour Guide cannot double up with your Hero Power, unlike Kobold Librarian, where you can play Kobold Librarian and then use your Hero Power and draw 2 cards. Totem Shaman, I feel like this is probably the most legitimate use of it. Some people are saying, oh yeah, if you play it on turn 1, you could set up a guaranteed turn 3 Totemic Reflection, but I feel like that's not really that good either. You play your Hero Power Totem, you play your Totemic Reflection on it, and you have 2/2/4s. Woohoo. If you're playing it for the rogue just to weapon up on turn 1, that seems like a waste. Paladin, just to get 2 1/1s on turn 1, that's ridiculous. Plus, I feel like you play Pure Paladin anyways. Some people are like saying it's underrated. I'm going to say the people who are saying it's underrated are overrating Tour Guide. And let me also say that the 3-star rating is pandering to the bad players who are going to play this card across a number of decks. Cult Neophyte, 1 star. I don't feel like the meta will ever be like spell heavy enough to run the Neophyte. Mana Feeder Panthera, 3 stars. I feel like the most fitting deck for this is a Control Demon Hunter. Not sure if a Tempo Demon Hunter will be able to slot in the Panthera. He's a 3 mana 2/3 draw card and give your hero +1 attack. Good. Sneaky Delinquent, 4 stars. I feel like this is actually one of the slight sleepers of the set. This card seems great in Stealth Rogue. You replace Skyvateer, a 1/3 stealth draw card, with a 3/1 stealth that draws a 3/1. Potentially in other aggro decks too, I think. Transfer Student, 3 stars. We've seen Transfer Student in a number of decks right now. If it were to get a rating for Ashes of Outland, it would get around a 4 or 5-star rating. However, it has dropped off in usage. Perhaps a lot of it was novel usage. With better cards coming in, Transfer Student should continue to be worse. But note, with Scholomance's official release, when you play Transfer Student on a Scholomance board, you will get a dual class card, which is actually a pretty good effect. Voracious Reader, 5 stars. Because Voracious Reader exists, decks may slant towards more aggressive. More tempo decks will be around. Once you lose your hand, you can just play Voracious Reader as a 2 mana, draw 3, and if you can protect the reader, you might even be able to play that set of cards and then draw another 3. That's pretty insane. Wandmaker, 1 star. Unfortunately, I don't believe a 2 mana 2/2, which gets you a 1 mana spell, is quite worth the slot. Better cards out there, basically. Educated Elec, 1 star. Remembering your spells doesn't really warrant a card. I don't see any combinations with this card. Enchanted Cauldron, 1 star. Too much utility, too much cuteness. Robes of Protection, 1 star. I don't believe there's enough room to play your 3 mana 2/4 utility card with any amount of consistency, when it can be removed by a weapon, it can be removed by rush, it can be removed by AoE. Crimson Hothead, 4 stars. I'm rating this higher than most people because I have found a use for it. You're playing a druid deck, you're playing Breath of Dreams because that card is insane, and you need a dragon package. Visiting all my options, I found Crimson Hothead to be an excellent addition to make for 5 dragons, which I think is, not that many dragons, but any other dragon that you put in instead of Hothead seems like a questionable choice. Hence why some druids did attempt to do a Breath of Dreams 3 dragon package. Divine Rager, 1 star, what a meme. Fishy Flyer, 1 star. I did consider it in Murloc Paladin and found it too slow. If it's too slow for the Murloc based deck, probably too slow everywhere else. Lorekeeper Polkelt, 5 stars. I think that this card is going to see play across a number of decks, not just combo decks, not just control decks which want to get their big cards at the end, perhaps even mid-range decks which want to get their big cards and just, throw threat after threat, maybe even aggro decks that throw in a few big burn cards at the end, guaranteed to draw them with Polkelt. Wretched Tutor, 1 star, just feels like it costs too much mana to deal 2 damage to all minions. Headmaster Kel'thuzad, 5 stars. Feel like it's a great inclusion into control decks which have low mana cost kill spells. For example, Warrior with Shield Slam, for example, Priest with Shadow Word Death, for example, Priest with Shadow Word Ruin, for the incredible turn. Lake Thresher, 2 stars. Feel like it's going to get some experimentation with guardian animals in Druid. However, I don't believe it's a good addition. But I'm not actually sure, maybe it is. If there's enough aggro, maybe you do want to play it, and then it's like an AoE when you play guardian animals. Interesting idea. Ogremancer, 1 star, way too slow. Steward of Scrolls, 1 star, also way too slow. Azure Drake just isn't good in this meta. And it's not a dragon, notably. Vectus, 2 stars. There are some decks that you can consider putting this in, but ultimately, I don't think there are enough Death Rattle cards being played in our meta for you to consistently play Vectus to good effect. Onyx Mage Scribe, 3 stars. This one's a bit of a higher rating, and it represents my belief that even though initially it may not be great, it is possible for us to enter a meta where there are enough control decks that it does become a value game, and you play Onyx Mage Scribe for value. Smug Senior, 1 star. And just right after I talked about Onyx Mage Scribe, if the meta slows down enough, I could see Smug Senior in a control warrior deck, even considered it. Any control deck, really. If the meta is slow enough, could see play, but I think it's significantly less likely than Onyx Mage Scribe. Sorcerer's Substitute, 2 stars. I feel like this is good in only exactly one of 2 decks, Spell Damage Shaman or Spell Damage Mage. Both of which I feel like are too inconsistent to play the substitute. With the Shaman, you're really hoping to have the spell damage weapon in your hand, swing with it and play the substitute. Maybe in a dream scenario, you innervate into it, play it on turn 4, 2 6/6s, insane but too inconsistent. Master Alabaster, 2 stars. I feel like this card is, again, similar to Onyx Mage Scribe, a consideration if the meta slows down enough and you're a control deck and you want to gain an advantage on another control deck, you'll put the Master Alabaster in there. However, I don't think the meta will slow down enough for Plagued Proto-Drake, 1 star. Like, yes, it's value, but not enough. And there you have it. If you've seen all of the Scholomance Academy cards, I applaud you, for you have seen all of the ratings. Cards of all types of power levels are being represented. And I think this expansion is especially exciting because it's a lot more difficult to nail down the powerful cards. It's less about stats and goodness when played on curve and more about combination plays and how the deck as a whole synergizes together and how well you can execute the deck's game plan instead of just playing on curve. So I'm really looking forward to Scholomance Academy. Hope you stick around and watch the science unfurl.